Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Dr. Alan Hyde.
I'm Don Radin.
Today we're going to talk about relapse prevention, what happens in the process of any addictive process, whether that be substances, gambling, sex, you name it. We're going to talk about the process of getting clean and sober, the process of recovery, and what relapse really looks like in this journey. Don, you want to kick us off?
Sure. So, welcome to Breaking Free Recovery Radio. Again, my name is Don Radin, and we're going to be discussing relapse. Um, as an addict and alcoholic, I'm going to be using some different verbiage than Alan, who is a clinician. But at this point, I don't want to split hairs on that, but understand the verbiage that I might be using may be a little different. But when it comes to relapse, I don't believe this idea that is in AA or any other 12-step fellowship that relapse means failure. And I also don't believe that relapse is a necessary part of recovery. There are people who find a solution and they stay sober and clean and sober the rest of their lives. That's not my story. I wasn't presented with a solution, or if I was, I wasn't ready to hear it. But relapse is not, it's not a game finisher. And it doesn't have to be. And for those who are in 12-step land, the idea that someone doesn't have something to offer after a relapse is absolutely absurd, and shame on you if you don't understand step one. But I do want to welcome everybody. I want you to realize that if you genuinely believe that alcoholism and addiction is a disease, then that means it's not a choice. And so those who suffer from a relapse shouldn't have to suffer shame and humiliation, especially from people who allegedly believe, if you're, again, in a 12-step fellowship, that step one, which is the foundation, is true. If that's true, then we should expect relapses, not shun them. We should welcome back someone who's fallen down. Um, but I don't want to go too far into this. Alan?
You know, substance use, gambling, impulsive, compulsive sexual behaviors, whatever it is that you struggle with in the realms of addiction and addictive process is full of shame, right? Hoarding. There's a lot of different behaviors that can fall under this umbrella. And it's really important as you guys sit with us on these videos, and we invite you to sit with us for this entire discussion to address the process of shame. When a client asks me, hey, I want to address this behavior, what do I do? The first process that we start with is an understanding of the difference between shame and guilt. Shame is a process of I am bad, I am wrong. Guilt is the process in the emotional experience of I've done something bad and I've done something wrong. And so our process in recovery, if we look at it just kind of like behaviorally, is a process of learning how to sit with our powerlessness in a process of shame, right? To identify not just toxic and unhealthy shame, but healthy aspects of shame where I feel like I've done something that isn't desirable, which instantly walks us back to our compass of guilt, right? Guilt points us in the directions that we need to go for behavior changes. And so when we're walking through this, when I walk through it with a client, it's a process of addressing shame to get to a point of understanding guilt, to get into a place of action that allows us to change our lives. And when we get into a place of action, especially around the things that are shameful, it brings pain. Right. So when someone asks me, what's the first thing that I need to do and what am I going to experience? The answer to that is pain. You're going to experience pain. You need to experience pain because the lessons are in the pain that bring us to peace on the other side. And so what you see a lot of times with relapse is the engagement with pain and a process of not sitting with it long enough to find proper action. And so the shifts are pretty simple, but they get complicated when we're having to sit with our emotions. And so as we unfold and unpack some of these things today, we're hoping that you take some nuggets of wisdom. And if you do, hop in the comment sections, like and subscribe to our channel, because we talk about these concepts every time we sit down for a video like this. So that's kind of our guiding principle here is how to navigate through shame and knowing that it's okay to experience shame because it'll lead us to the pain that gives you some behavior change.
The concept of a perfect streak, of going through recovery without bumping your head, is A, it's absurd, and B, what Alan was talking about, the shame that's inflicted upon people who do relapse or chronic relapsers. Um, it's like driving your car. If you get into a little fender bender, do you just stop driving? Have you learned nothing about driving because of a little accident? Or do you press on, make course corrections, be more situationally aware? This is the growth process for addiction. I am a father of four, and I got to watch my children learn how to walk, and they didn't give up after they fell down the first time, which was typically after the first step or the second one, and they fell down again. They just got back up and kept going. So pick up your cross and keep going. It's if it's an illness, you didn't choose this. There is a way out, and the medicine we're going to talk a little bit later.
It's okay to be messy in this process of turning our lives over and seeking a new path of recovery, relating to people in healthier ways. When we talk about being messy, I instantly think about relationships. Relationships and connection with people are often a process of admitting where we've made mistakes. And what I witness more than anything else in a clinical setting is that most of the distress relationally is coming from individuals who are struggling to admit to other people that they've made a mistake, either out of not wanting to ask for help or to not look imperfect. But our process of recovery, our process of healthy behaviors is just being able to admit when we need help. It's being able to admit when we've been in the wrong. And if you can do so consistently, allow yourself to be messy in this process, then when you face hardships, you can turn to support. And that's, man, it's true in running a business, it's true in your relationship with your partners, it's true with your children. If you could just look and be honest and admit your shortcomings, all right, you're going to get through the pain a lot faster. You're going to get to solution a lot quicker. We've got to learn to ask for help. We've got to learn to turn to support. And when we don't, this is a key indicator, and I'm sure Don would agree, when people aren't turning to their support, they are more likely and more vulnerable to things like relapse and continuing this cycle over and over again.
Absolutely, the most important thing is taking action. It's not sitting on your hands. It's not wallowing around in self pity. I understand feeling bad about mistakes, but you're not your mistakes. You're not defined by your mistakes. You're defined by what you do with them, and how you grow from them. So please understand this idea of perfection is impossible. The um, the action necessary for me, and not all people this is true, but for me, is the 12 steps. I have to take action and stay in motion. I'll tell you, as a chronic relapser, I've been in recovery since November 11th, 1987, and I do not have 40 years of sobriety. um, but what I do have is a lot of life lessons, and it allows me actually to be much more helpful to those who relapse than those who are one chip wonders. Um, but but it's action. My last relapse was after 8.5 years of sobriety. I have 9.5 now, and that big, pink cloud, that huge spiritual experience never happened for me. I put down the alcohol because I knew that I was endeavoring on a project that needed my support, and I knew that this was going to go off the rails and was going to end badly. So I stopped drinking, and I picked up the tools of the 12 steps, and I went through the work again. It wasn't new. It wasn't fascinating. It wasn't earth shattering. It was painful and it was difficult. And I kept moving through it and kept moving through it by taking action, not sitting still. The only way for us to get to the other side of fear is to go through it. You can't get around it. You can't get over it and you can't go under it. Um, so keep moving your feet, and you will arrive where you need to be.
Mm. Whatever it is that's dark or evil in the world that causes behaviors like this, and I say cause with some apprehension. I was talking with someone the other day. We were talking a lot about fear and the fear that drove him to engage in certain behaviors that were going to throw his entire life away. Um, and one of the things I highlighted is that after sitting with thousands and thousands of people, is that the darker side of life that creeps into your head always has to appeal, and this is through observation, has to appeal to false evidence,
Mhm.
right? The only way that it creeps in is if you allow yourself to believe in that false evidence, right? So we
Mhm.
know the acronym for fear that gets used a lot is false evidence appearing real. And so once we've agreed that it appears real and made a decision to crack that door open, all of these behaviors start flooding in that are destructive. And all it was an appeal to things that haven't happened yet or things that weren't going to be true. And so a lot of times on this show, we talk about just getting 1% better today, just a little bit better. And a big part of that I've always worked with individuals on is just taking a pause, not isolating. Now, when we take the pause, we start to utilize the tools that Don was referring to a moment ago. And the biggest one, when someone comes in just such an unmanageable space into my therapy sessions, is to get them plugged in with community. you
Mhm.
know Once you've taken that pause from an urge to use substances or an urge to act out behaviorally, then we move into connection with other people. We pick up the phone and we stop isolating. We talk to other people who understand our struggles. We talk to people with a track record of being supportive. That's what's real. When we appeal to the things that are real, which are human connections and relationships, the fear melts away and gets us into action. We hear other people's perspectives. When we've been appealed to believe in things that aren't real, then fear takes over and we engage in things that aren't really going to solve the issue. And once we make those simple shifts in our mind, life gets a lot easier.
And I'm so glad you brought up the fear aspect, because we make decisions on what we project on the future. It's not happening now. My right now is just fine. I've got friendship. I've got, a great family. I've got clothing, food, drink. I have everything, shelter. I have everything that I need to be sustained in life right in this moment. Oxygen in my lungs, blood flowing through my veins and arteries. Fear. Um, I love a saying I use a lot is the thing that I fear the most causes the thing I most fear to happen.
Mhm.
And it's because I take actions to prevent my fear of something that has not yet occurred. And it somehow always ends up causing the thing I most fear to happen. Prime example is a relationship. When I was young and I didn't know anything about codependency or enmeshment or any of that. I was a young kid, and um, I did not want my first girlfriend to go anywhere. I wanted her to be mine and mine alone. And I put a virtual death grip around her. Where you been? Who you been with? Etc. I didn't want to lose her. And what did I do? I forced her out the door. And it was because of fear. So when we take fear-based action, we to manage our image. That's what this is about. I want people to believe a certain thing about me that isn't true, because I'm afraid that if you knew the truth, you wouldn't accept me, that I'm not good enough. And this happens quite often in the rooms. People are dying every single day because they're afraid of the judgment of the fellowship around being honest. I've seen men who will die by because they're too ashamed to go to their group and say, "Hey, I've relapsed," because they also were part of that cycle when someone else relapsed. They were part of the coup that was saying, "Can you believe it? Can you believe who did this and who did that?" Instead of reaching out their hand for to help the man who still suffers. And that means not necessarily drinking or using. Suffering happens in silence, and that's where death happens also.
Mm.
So you can't save your butt and your face at the same time. So you get to decide which one. And saving face isn't going to keep me alive. I'd rather save my ass.
Mm. Look, people are going to be disappointed when you relapse. One of the biggest questions I always get is like, well, how do I address this with my partner? How do I share with people that I've fallen, that I've struggled? Uh, and this is what Don was talking about. Is like, you got to be willing and ready to save your ass before you save your face. You've got to come back with the honest information and face the disappointment to get through. It's like, look, I am a family member of someone who struggles with addictions, and I had to face my own recovery, the honest truth that my disappointment was really just an inability to save, fix, or help somebody who needed to save, fix, and help themselves. And I needed to grapple with that in my own life, right? The same way they needed to grapple with their own recovery in their life. And the more I was able to detach from that, the more honest people were able to be with me, and the more connections that were found that led to a fuller, more joyful life. You see this all the time. Don talked about like how difficult it can be to come to the rooms and say, hey, look, I relapsed, right? And then suffer in silence. People do this in the rooms. They do this with their children. Image management is a big one
Mm.
that men struggle with. Is the potential fear of someone else's disappointment, even a small child. Well, children are resilient, and what they're looking for is guidance, and guidance comes through a process of truth. And so if you're an adult struggling with an addiction and you're trying to hide that with other types of behaviors from your own children, you're never going to sustain it. And this process is one that we have to let go of. Trying to save face to your children or your partners and things like that, it's only going to lead you to do things that confuse people, right? And it's a big one. Like when you have people in your life who are confused by your behaviors, it's a good reflection to you that there are some things that need to change, that your image doesn't matter, that these people don't care about how good you look or what you've got going on, because what they want is for you to connect. And we do that by being honest. We do it by not worrying about what other people's disappointments are. They're going to have them, all right? And they're allowed to have them. Now, they're not entitled to it, and they have their own work they need to do, but they're allowed to be as disappointed as they want in your process, because it's yours, not theirs. And this is where people get confused. It's like, well, not only do I have to stay clean and sober or stop acting out in certain ways, but I have to have these people accept me for who I am. And that second part, it couldn't be further from the truth. You have to accept who you are, warts and all. And if you don't do that, there is a price to pay later. So you see this with parents trying to save face to their children, is those children are going to grow up and they're going to be adults, and they're going to be just as intelligent and with it and aware as we are. All right. And they're going to be hurt and upset. And if you don't think that there's a price to pay on that, then you're sorely mistaken. So the work starts now, and just being honest and not worrying about what the image is, because we see it all the time in our settings in recovery, is that the person who made the most mistakes, that just got honest about it, their children grow into adults and they have a beautiful, thriving relationship through a process of honesty, no matter what the mistakes were, right? There is redemption. Now, if you're hurting and you feel like there isn't redemption because somebody's hurt you, then you need support as well. And I would encourage you to get that support in a place like Al Anon or somewhere with peer support who's impacted by these issues, so that you can stop taking it so personally when someone else is making mistakes. There's a million things that we could say on that, but as far as the disappointment is concerned, we don't need to worry about being disappointed in the alcoholic who relapses. That's the nature of alcoholism. The nature of recovery is connection, right? And you may be irritated that they're not connecting with you right away, but they're connecting with another degenerate who's in recovery too. But I'll just say this, man, whatever works to save a life, whatever works.
And you'll hear in recovery rooms change of people, places, and things. And to some degree, I believe that. However, my experience shows that I've lived in 47 US cities since 1994 from coast to coast. And I've found drugs, or they found me, in every single state where I knew no one's trying to start a new identity, a new chapter of my life where no one knew me, and within a very short period of time, I was banging my fist on the bar or on the dope house door, going, "How did this happen again?" Um, what I will say this is that when you are starting to live that honest life that Alan was just talking about, that the dishonest, shady people will erode from your life. They will just go away, because they don't thrive in honesty and light. They thrive in darkness and dishonesty. Uh, However, there are situations that you may. I came from a drinking family, and there was no holiday that didn't go by with the whole family not getting together. All got together, and they were all drinking, and some were using other substances. There was no way to avoid it. Uh, However, if you're going to go to an event where you're trying to seek kind of enjoyment through other people, their proxy experience, and count how many people, how many drinks someone's having, or how much of a good time they're having because they're drinking. The book of Alcoholics Anonymous says that if that's the case, you still have alcoholic thinking, and that you should turn your focus on helping someone else. So you should always be honest enough that if you're uncomfortable, to not go. It's fine. It's okay to say no. We talked about it last week. No is a complete sentence. I have to go. I'll talk to you later. See you at the next event. Um, but you don't have to necessarily avoid all of these experiences. It's just, where's your level of comfort within yourself? What's your motive to go? Is it to seek pleasure out of the experience, or is it to add to the experience? Is it to contribute to the family event? If it's not, you might want to go help someone else.
Hmm. I remember early in my recovery as a family member, I had the same experience that Don was talking about, where every holiday you show up, it's like you could set the clock to it when things are going to get belligerent. I remember my therapist saying, it's like, if you know the time frames, right, where you can go and have a good time, and then the nonsense starts, it's okay to leave when the nonsense starts. And I swear, it was like I could set it almost to like the freckle past the hair on my own wrist. I knew when that time was coming at every family function. And the first couple times I did it, I remember I would be driving away and I would be sad. Right? I would be sad. I want to be there with my family. But what I didn't want was to be the person that I turned into when those situations unfolded, when the alcohol came out and people started throwing around slurs and started getting real passive aggressive. I didn't like who I became in those moments. And so, as sad as I was to leave holiday parties with family, I was very happy and in a place of peace as time went on, to not be that guy anymore. They would get controlling, who would say things that I didn't mean. Right, I started to lean on the principles that had been shared to me, and one of them was never miss a golden opportunity to shut the fuck up. And so things would start popping off. I would zip my lips and I would get out of town. I'd get out of Dodge, and that saved my butt more times than I can count. It improved my relationships with my family. They wanted me around more because I knew when to detach, and it was hard in the beginning to do that. We talk a lot in our videos about taking a pause and delaying moments where we want to act and we want to say things and we want to get a change in the environment. And that separation, right? Sometimes the pause is getting out of the environment. I can't tell you how many times in my early recovery in Al-Anon, I would be driving away from the family event and I would call someone else in program, and wouldn't you know it, around the holidays, they're having similar experiences. And we would just talk about it and I would feel a lot better because they weren't trying to change or fix me. They'd just share their experience. We would connect, right, as peer to peer, and I would go home and feel just fine. And I'd enjoy the rest of my holiday. There is hope in community. There is hope in taking some time to delay our own responses and reactions, there is hope in connecting with other people who've been through similar struggles. And we hope you find it. Right? We hope you find it here with us, and we hope you find it out there in your communities.
And please realize this is your life. What are you going to do with your life? What experiences are you going to allow in, or ones that you don't want to be a part of? Um, we'll say that separation is healthy in specific and certain situations. It doesn't mean that you don't love someone. Please understand that proximity doesn't have anything to do with love. Um, a dear friend of mine of 47 years, I believe it's been, just recently passed. And we hadn't talked in decades. I received a random phone call from him over a month ago, and we had an hour-long chat, catching up, reminiscing. I never stopped loving him that entire time. Was he constantly on my mind? No, he had a life, I had a life, and I'm very sad for him and his family, for the loss. However, it wasn't proximity that kept that love alive. Either I am loving someone, even if it's from a distance, to keep myself safe, or uh, I'm enduring something that doesn't need to be endured. This is your life. What are you going to do with it? What experiences do you want to have and to contribute to? I'll always keep coming back around to that by packing into the lives of others, by giving love, I receive tenfold back. And so this idea that we just because we say no to certain company or certain experiences, that we don't love someone. If you really love them, then you'd stop drinking for their sake. Is That's a myth, right? That's a dogmatic belief system, because if it's a disease, we don't have a choice, and if we relapse, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Unfortunately, today, sometimes with fentanyl, that a relapse is not just changing your sobriety date; it is an end of itself. But please understand, distance does not equal that that you don't love them or that you're apathetic. And if they can't get over it, that's on them. It's your life.
Yeah. You, you who's scrolling through these videos, I am talking directly to you. We have a responsibility to observe ourselves, right? Not to just absorb all of these experiences that we're having and then make excuses for why we're acting out. You have a responsibility to observe what your experience is. No one else is going to observe it for you, and no one else is going to walk the path of action for you. When we take in information from our experiences, our relapses, our behaviors that are causing destruction, we get information that allows us to make changes, and we have a responsibility to pay attention to those things. In the popular culture, we use the term mindfulness, but what it really means is taking the responsibility of observing yourself, your own actions, your own behaviors, and the way that your actions and behaviors impact other people. If you have a situation occur and you just let it happen and then you beat yourself up for it and you turn to the old behavior, you have not sufficiently observed yourself enough to take a pause and make a change. No one's going to do it for you. You have a responsibility to observe what is happening to you in your life through your own behaviors. And if you can do that, it really is simple. It really is simple to make the change once you've gathered enough information. Once the 2x4s hit you over the forehead enough times, maybe it'll start to hurt and it'll point you in a direction to duck your head and make a different decision. But no one's going to do it for you. It is your responsibility to observe what's happening in your life and make a change.
Authenticity is a filter. And what I mean by that is, by being honest and surrounding yourself, you'll surround yourself with people who are honest. When I share openly about my struggles, even in long term sobriety, I am surrounded by people who want to be honest, and honest with me also. Um, if you can't tell a friend the truth about some of their behaviors and how it's affecting you or other people, then you are not a friend. And if the people that I hang out with and that are attracted to me can hold me accountable. They can tell me, Don, you're off center today. And it's because I'm honest. If I'm not honest, they can't tell me these things. And so I want genuine people around me. And so that requires me to be genuine. And when I do that, the people who are trying to save their face rather than their ass will go save their face somewhere else. They won't associate. Um, and so that's how you can, by natural selection and not having to do passive aggressive avoidance or any other behavior that's destructive. I just have to be authentic, just be genuine, honest, and those other people will fade away.
Yeah. And the more you do, it highlights a very, very powerful tool as we shift into kind of a deep dive on the tools we're talking about today. When we're holding boundaries for ourselves and communicating with other people, a boundary is a broken record. I can't tell you how many times with parents or with individuals in relationships, I have to remind people that a boundary is a broken record. I am not available for this. I am not going to do that. These statements, these simple boundary statements, are I statements. I am not available for that. Hey, do you want to go drinking? I'm not available for that. I don't do that. As Don was saying, the more you use those broken record statements, the more likely that the person that wants to do those things with you and be a bad influence or try to manipulate you or peer pressure you into the stuff, they're just going to disappear. Why? Because they'll just go find someone else who doesn't have the boundaries. All right, they'll find someone else who says yes right away or is easier to break down. This is like 101 in the modern dating world. I have a lot of young ladies on my caseload that be like, well, I just don't understand why this guy will, talk to me like all of these ways to build me up and then ghosts me on the back end. Well, the reason is because the boundaries weren't there. That, if the guy wants a relationship with you, he'll adhere to the boundaries of you not wanting to sleep with him right away, and he'll continue to get to know you. But the guy who wants to just sleep with a girl and ghost her, the minute a boundary gets set, he's out of town. He's gone, right? But here's a kicker: is the moment that dude, let's say, uses a young lady, and then she feels ghosted and he tries to come back a month later. This is a common script of the narcissist. They come back a month later, sometimes even more. The moment you open that door back up and think, hey, he's into me, is the moment he knows he's got you, because you don't have any boundaries. And you're right back there on his roster. Right. So we talk about broken record I statements anytime someone comes in to violate or manipulate you, because the more you stick to that broken record, the more likely the bad influences and the people who are bad actors will disappear out of your life. And so you may be asking yourself, why do people mistreat me? Why does this keep happening to me? And the simple answer is boundaries. The simple answer is internally, what do I need to do to protect myself? Right now, when you're in it, it's a little more complicated relationally, how to start to navigate difficult dynamics within a committed relationship. And that's a conversation for a whole nother video. But if you're out there searching, right, first thing we have to address is, do you have a problem in looking for love in all the wrong places, right? Do I have some struggles in the ways that I'm looking for people to come in my life? And is there things that I can do differently? And I would plant this tool, which is, I am not available for that when it's something you're uncomfortable with, or I don't do that when it's something you really don't want to do. And the more you stick to that broken record, the better off you're going to feel in relationships, vulnerably and around trust and honesty. People respect it. And if you believe, this is a common one, if you believe that just most people don't respect those things, then you're running in the wrong circles, because there is a vast percentage of people out there who respect boundaries and want to connect with you and actually know who you are. And you owe it to yourself to get into those circles.
So one of the things, if you're tactile, a tactile learner, and that's how you function, having hands-on, that having something that you can connect with during difficult times can be important. It's not one of my um, issues, but there are people who encourage you to carry around maybe your desire chip, and when you need a reminder to reach into your pocket and do that. What I've discovered that works for me is, again, I carry around big books wherever I go, which is the basic text for Alcoholics Anonymous, and I take that and I go carry a message somewhere. I find a detox or a hospital, and I go to help someone. My instant reaction to difficulty is not running away from something, it's contributing to something. It's when I take that fear-based action, like we said earlier, that causes the difficulties in my life, that manifests the things that I fear to happen. There's a quote from the Bible that says, "The thing that I fear to happen, most fear to happen, has befallen me." And I believe it's because we took action based on fear instead of action based on a willingness to contribute. I will say that it's not an easy discipline. There are so many times that I've made commitments or made arrangements to be a certain place to either speak or do a big book study and be part of that community that I didn't want to do it. I'm driving there trying to figure out what excuse can I use to not do this thing. And then once I've taken that action, I invariably find that I'm in a much better spot, not asking the world to solve my problems or kidnapping an entire room of people in recovery with my sad story, but to put into the universe. When I don't focus on myself, God can work with me, because the tools that I've been using my entire life, selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, fear, these things have caused the pain, all the pain in my life. So why would I lean on those? Why don't I stop focusing on myself and my poor little situation and direct all my energy into helping someone else? So if you're finding yourself in a difficult situation, there's all kinds of ways that you can help. It's not just exclusively alcoholic to alcoholic, drug addict to drug addict, although we are uniquely qualified to talk about those things if you're in recovery. I can pack into the stream of life with my grandmother, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my family, my kids. I can pour in to them. It does not just have to be recovery related, because if you are living a 12-step life, it's just a lifestyle. It's not, oh, the recovery part of my life. There's no separation. And when people talk about, my sobriety being separate from my life, um, I don't really comprehend that, because the way that I live today is what keeps me clean and sober today. So if you're tactile, having a chip or something may work for you for a reminder. If you're finding that that's not sufficient force, action, action, action.
Yeah. We're not on autopilot anymore around these parts. We are going to take action. And like Don was saying, working and living in a process of recovery, you're going to find that there has always been, will always be, people around you to be of service to. Uh, in the process of packing joy into your life, just look around. Look around at the people, look around at nature, look around at the opportunities that you have in life. What? It doesn't feel like it's big enough, good enough, or where you want to be. And so that's a reason, right? That's a reason to destroy or to engage in behaviors that are hurtful. No. Recovery teaches us to engage in those things, to make situations just a little bit better in our lives the way that they were. To build a life that's worth living. And this is why they say in like 12-step recovery world that these principles will be helpful for virtually anybody, is because these principles were taken from biblical teachings. They're philosophical principles since the beginning of time that work for human behavior. It's like, if I just get honest and connect with people and find ways to be of service with them while I continue to clean up my own poor behavior every day, wouldn't you know, life gets better. And we can't be on autopilot for that. More often than not, what you see in the family disease of addiction are loved ones and the individual struggling with any form of addiction on autopilot. There's an autopilot way that they talk to each other. There's an autopilot way that they fight with each other. There's an autopilot way that they all try to control each other. And then recovery comes in as the great disruptor and says, hey, there's actually a better set of behaviors here, a better way to communicate through honesty, a better way to confront a situation through caring, compassion, by being honest and saying, hey, you know what, these behaviors I don't really like and I'm not going to do them anymore. And I'm going to clean that up consistently each day as best I can, not perfectly, but I'm willing to be messy and do that and clean it up. And then once I've done it, I'm going to go and I'm going to show somebody else how to do it. And you may find yourself showing your grandma how to do that through your own actions. You may find yourself showing your kids how to do it. You certainly, if you got kids running around, that will be a thing. You've got to connect with the people around you. And so when you're being pulled, all right, for those who are actively struggling, you're being pulled in a direction that's bad for you. You got to disrupt it. You can't be on autopilot. Remove yourself from the situation. You're not a robot, all right? You're not a dud. You have a brain. It works. Use it.
So when you're in the mindset or you find what the book talks about, a speck on the horizon, instead of waiting until it's a full-blown tornado to take some sort of action, um, and for us in 12-step land, it's a life of spirituality. It's a life of seeking, a life of trying to get, unlimited power from God rather than my finite self, and running on, my self-will, which I don't believe that, and then this is a topic for another video, but I don't believe that we're ever rid of self-will. It's just how I align it. Am I running it on my own selfish motives, or am I trying to trust that the actions that I'm taking are for a higher purpose? Um, and so I totally gapped what I was going to say.
It's all
We're
good.
going to have to put a cut in there.
No, it's all good. This is what the people want.
Oh,
This is a perfect opportunity, right? To, take a breath. A tool we're always going to talk
Hmm.
about on the show is take a breath. You heard Don's sigh as he was following his train of thought. It's okay just to take a breath, man. Take the pressure off of it. Life isn't that serious. We talk about really serious, heavy shit. In the world, and the way of treating these things is always really serious, and it's always life or death, and those things are true, right? Recovery is a matter of life and death, both for the individual struggling with an addiction and the family, as to whether or not there's going to be life breathed into this relationship or the death of a relationship. And so these things are important, but you got to take a breath. You got to find the lighter side of life. You got to find ways to laugh. You got to find ways to smile. We're going to make mistakes, man. It's going to be messy, but don't give up on yourself. And take a deep breath once in a while. Sigh of relief. Sigh it out. Mistakes are part of the process, and you're going to be okay.
And he's not lying, because that little breath got me to a place where I remembered where the train derailed. And that was, I was going to finish with a quote out of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous on page 88. It says, if I'm genuinely seeking a spiritual way of life, whatever that means to you, it says that we are in much less danger of excitement, first on the list, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions, right? We become much more efficient. We do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. And so that energy that I typically wasted in covering up my mess uh, gets redirected into seeking God and helping his kids. And I don't tire so easily. I don't have worries. I don't run on fear or resentment, selfishness, self-pity. And these foolish decisions are always, almost always, based on running on those emotions instead of taking that breath, pausing. The book says pausing when agitated or doubtful, um, and and realize that I'm human. I make mistakes. I and anyone who knows me out there knows that I derail the train as we go around the mountain many times during a big book study.
Mm. Yeah. The men that Don and I work with would attest to that.
I'm
Man,
telling
they
you.
they love Don to death, and I do too. And we all agree we got to keep Don on the tracks.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, like ADHD, a lot of people are misdiagnosed because they want the amphetamines, but it's a real diagnosis. And I didn't realize I had it. I just thought I was scatterbrained. But man, I'll get rolling on something and off the rails we go. He's
Mm.
off into the horizon. Um, and so if you suffer that also, there is help and support. But please get properly diagnosed. If it doesn't involve a 2-hour minimum test, then you're just getting a script from a doc in the box.
Mm. Yeah, Doc in the box. 99-cent tacos, baby. What
99-cent scripts.
what are our intentions for you? I'm going to rattle some of them off real quick, and then I'll give Don an opportunity. So I'm just going to kind of go through really quick what our intentions are for you. No is a complete sentence. We hope that as you hear discussions like this, you're reminded that it's okay to have boundaries for yourself, and it's okay to say no. That when you go out there and you start to explore your recovery, that a big part of this in the beginning is fighting for who you can be and who God sees you to be, and knowing that that's the truth, that God wants to use you and he doesn't need your permission to use you. He's going to use you to help other people and to fight for that version of you, to address shame. All right, to get out of a place where you actually believe that you're wrong and bad, to get into a place where you acknowledge what has been wrong, what has been bad, and how can I address it, to combat shame, not by abolishing it, but by embracing it and moving through it. Um, we hope that you remind yourself, this is one of my favorites, that you're the house, not the trash can.
Mm.
Right? This one cracks me up, but it works to remember, is that you're not just a receptacle for people to throw their garbage into, right? You're a temple. You deserve to be protected. You deserve to surround yourself with people who love you and want what's best for you. And we really just hope that you'll be loyal to you. All right. Not loyal in the sense that I'm just going to do what I want and whatever feels good, but loyal in the way that I'm going to protect myself so that I can give freely of who I am to the people who need me to be that I'm going to remove barriers to what it means to be the best version of myself. And I'm not going to be so absorbed with my own ego to not help other people, but that I will be loyal enough to my own joy and my own peace in life to give it freely to other people who need it. These are our intentions for you. We hope that as we have these discussions that you connect with these things, because they are that meaningful and they are that important for you to embrace.
Well, and I'm not defined by my mistakes, and I think that's what Alan was driving at, is that I'm going to make them, and the people who judge me for them have no value to my life. And some of you are making comments right now, trolls, and I know you may be trying to rile me up, but I really don't care. Um, you're not contributing to my life. You're not contributing to this discussion. Everyone can find the missing button on a shirt, but no one sees the value of the shirt. Um, and I'm going to surround myself who see the value of it and not my mistakes, not the little spaghetti stain that's on my shirt. Um, Shame in relapse means that you have not accepted the truth about the first step. And the first step doesn't say that we won't drink or do drugs ever again. It says that we're powerless and we've lost the power of choice, right? So I don't have the power to stop this train from happening. It's going to happen again because I have an obsession of the mind, and I will relapse if I don't begin to live a spiritual life. So by living a spiritual life, the book talks about a story in there about a man who says, in finding God, he found himself. And when I seek God, I see my value. I see who I was made to be as a perfect child of God. And by perfect, I mean perfectly flawed, and and that's okay. Like, that's how God made me to be. I'm not to be perfect. Just to be the perfect Don. And that job is taken, so I don't want anybody else to try to be like me, because
Mm.
I'm already doing that. You be you. Um, but you'll find your value in living a spiritual life. And I'll keep coming back to this over and over again. When I run on my own gas, the vehicle at some point is pulled over on the side of the road. If
Mm.
I'm running on infinite gas, if I'm running on infinite fuel, then I can keep going through every moment of every day.
Mm. There is hope. And in that hope, there are a lot of things that I wish had been shared with me when I was younger, that, we seek to share with you guys. And one of those things that I wish uh, elders would have grabbed me and stated when I was young is that you have no idea the impact that your life will have on other people's lives. And this isn't, from a standpoint of like, I wish someone would have grabbed me and told me that I was going to grow into an adult and be a therapist who was going to help thousands of people in their life. No, it comes in the form of small comments, like one we got on our YouTube channel the other day of like, hey man, this video each week keeps hitting in a time and a space where I need to hear it.
Mhm.
Right? The little ways that we touch other lives. It's not about this content. It's not about showing up week in and week out and making videos like this or showing day in and day out in my clinical practice. It's about embracing what I wish I would have known back then when I was younger, is that my life had immense value beyond what even my responsibility was to comprehend that. It's not my job to comprehend the depth of the impact that I have on other people's lives. I just have a responsibility to show up and to do my best to be that guy, to do better and be better. And I wish that my younger self would have heard those messages. I heard it in my late 20s, early 30s, and I embraced it. But I wish I could have been grabbed and told that your life is valuable and that it's going to impact other people's lives in ways that you can't imagine, and not because of what you do for work, but because of all the mistakes that you're going to make in your life, and that people are going to love you anyway. And I wish that was a message that got shared more often.
So, a quick story about a guy who relapsed for 30 years, with several wins, as far as getting on the good foot, getting sober, clean and sober, rebuilding his life, and then tearing it down again. And he had a 12-step experience, the one that's laid out in the book. And with this guy, when he relapsed, he was like a monkey swinging from tree to tree, except he wouldn't let go of the branch behind him until he firmly had one in front of him. So he went from, powder cocaine to crack cocaine, from crack cocaine to opiates, from opiates, you get the drift. Um, and each time relapsing, tearing his life down. And until he got to a place where he had this spiritual experience, he knew that the 12 steps were the answer for him. And he found this passion in giving freely of himself to others. And he thought, well, if God wills it, I'd love to do this for the rest of my life. And he opened up a rehab, and he gave freely of himself, and he poured into the people that came to his facility and thrived around him. And that person is me. I I've made so many mistakes in my life. I've relapsed so many times, which has given me the tools to help every addict and alcoholic out there. I've wrestled with all the substances, and I can connect with folks on those levels. I've lost tons of relationships and family issues and all of the things that come with alcoholism and addiction. but having overcome them, they've become tools. They're not a burden. They're not a sadness. Um, I get to help people out of the depths of hell on many different levels and can connect to them and meet them where they're at. And I think that what Alan was talking about, um, these aren't these aren't setbacks. I become better at it. The more mistakes you make, the better of a human being you'll be if you want to face and rectify those errors the book talks about. It's it's a gold mine. Mistakes are a gold mine. I don't know how to do something right until I've learned how to do it wrong first.
So here's some redemption for your ass. If you're seeking recovery and fighting for yourself, I'm allowed to make mistakes. I'm allowed to start over. Mistakes don't define who I am as a human being. My recovery is worth fighting for. I do not have to be perfect to be worthy of love. I hope these messages resonate in your mind, that redemption is possible, that your recovery is worth fighting for, that mistakes don't define who you are, that it's okay to start over and over and over again, because every time you start over, you've learned more about yourself, you've gained more information, and you've gained experiences that will be helpful to others. I hope you find redemption in those words.
Relapse isn't the end, and sobriety isn't the end game in itself either. Just abstinence alone doesn't solve our problem. It's by packing into the stream of life, learning my value as a human being, that I get to enjoy a beautiful life, a beautiful family. The family may or may not change in your life, but when you change, your family changes. When your perspective of your job role changes, then the job changes, and nothing externally has to move. You don't have to move mountains in order to be okay. So fall down and get back up again. A man's not defined by how many times he falls off the horse, but how many times he gets back on it. And what did Jordan say? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Take a shot on yourself. If you don't, if you just lay down and stay down, um, you know, I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry for the people who love you. But get back up. You're worth it.
Like and subscribe. Every like, comment, subscription on this channel helps move us closer to helping the lives of those who are seeking recovery, the family members who are desperate. Your engagement on this simple social media platform helps save lives. Hitting a like button, hitting the subscribe button, it takes 2 seconds on your part or less, and it helps save a life. Please engage. Please subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you in the next video. We love you. See you.
Peace.